Do you remember when pickup trucks were built like tanks and safety was just a suggestion? Back when real men drove real trucks and the only protection you had was a prayer and a steel dashboard? From fuel tanks that could explode to steering wheels that could impale you, these American workhorses were tougher than nails, but came with some serious risks. Let's take a ride back to when pickup trucks had character, even if that character was trying to kill you. Number 13. Side-mounted spare tires. Do you remember when pickup trucks wore their spare tires like badges of honor, mounted proudly on the side of the bed or even on the running boards? From the 1920s through the 1960s, manufacturers like Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge thought this was the perfect solution for easy access and bed space preservation. The 1955 Chevy Task Force and Ford's F-Series trucks commonly featured these side-mounted spares, and truck owners loved the convenience of not having to dig under their truck or empty their bed to change a flat. But what seemed like brilliant engineering turned into a recipe for disaster. In side impact collisions, these spare tires became 70-pound projectiles, capable of crushing doors and windows with devastating force. The mounting brackets designed for normal road vibrations couldn't handle the extreme forces of a crash. Even worse, the protruding tire created a snag hazard that could catch on other vehicles, guardrails, or even pedestrians. By the 1970s, as safety regulations tightened and crash testing became standard, manufacturers moved spare tires under the bed or inside the cab, ending the era of the side-mounted spare that looked tough but packed a deadly punch. Number 12. Exposed fuel fillers. Picture this: you're filling up your trusty pickup and the fuel filler neck is right there in the open, completely exposed to the elements and potential impact. From the 1940s through the early 1970s, most American pickups featured fuel fillers that stuck out like sore thumbs, with no protection whatsoever. Ford's F-100, Chevy's C/K series, and Dodge's D series all sported these vulnerable fuel systems that seemed designed more for convenience than safety. The dangers were as obvious as they were terrifying. In rear-end collisions, these exposed fillers could rupture, spilling gasoline everywhere and turning a fender bender into a potential fire hazard. The filler caps, often just simple twist-on affairs, could pop off from impact or even aggressive cornering, creating fuel spills that were environmental hazards and safety risks. Static electricity from fuel flowing through these ungrounded systems could create sparks, and the lack of rollover valves meant fuel could pour out if the truck tipped over. As federal safety standards evolved in the 1970s, manufacturers were forced to relocate fuel fillers to protected areas and add safety features like rollover valves and proper grounding, finally putting an end to these mobile fire hazards. Number 11. Manual choke controls. Every morning was an adventure when your pickup truck came equipped with a manual choke control, that mysterious knob or lever that determined whether your engine would purr like a kitten or cough like a chain smoker. From the 1930s through the late 1970s, virtually every American pickup relied on manual chokes to start cold engines. Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge, and International Harvester all equipped their trucks with these temperamental devices that required a delicate touch and perfect timing to operate safely. The danger wasn't immediately obvious, but it was serious. Drivers had to take their attention off the road to adjust the choke while driving, especially during warm-up periods when the engine was most unstable. A poorly adjusted choke could flood the engine with fuel, creating backfire conditions that could damage the exhaust system or create fire hazards. Even worse, many drivers would leave the choke partially engaged while driving, creating carbon monoxide-rich exhaust that could seep into the cab through rust holes or poor seals. The combination of distracted driving and potential carbon monoxide exposure made manual chokes a hidden danger. By the 1980s, automatic chokes in fuel injection systems had eliminated this daily hazard, making cold starts safer and more reliable for everyone. Number 10. Split windshields. The split windshield was a hallmark of classic American pickups, featuring two separate panes of glass divided by a central pillar that gave trucks their distinctive appearance. From the 1930s through the mid-1960s, manufacturers like Ford with their F-Series, Chevrolet's advanced design trucks, and Dodge's job-rated series all featured these divided windshields. Drivers appreciated the ability to open one side for ventilation and the supposedly easier replacement of individual panes when damaged. However, this design harbored serious safety flaws that became apparent as highway speeds increased. The central dividing pillar created a significant blind spot directly ahead of the truck, making it difficult to spot pedestrians, cyclists, or small vehicles. In frontal collisions, the pillar could become dangerous, and the two separate panes of glass created weak points that could shatter more easily than a single, continuous windshield. The rubber seals between the glass and pillar were prone to leaking, allowing water and debris into the cab, and the multiple mounting points meant more potential failure spots during crashes. As safety standards evolved and one-piece windshields became mandatory in the late 1960s, the split windshield disappeared from American pickups, replaced by stronger, safer single-pane designs that provided better visibility and crash protection. Number 9. Bench seats without headrests. For decades, the standard pickup truck interior featured a simple bench seat that could accommodate 3 people across. No bucket seats, no headrests, just a flat cushion and backrest that stretched from door to door. From the 1940s through the early 1970s, Ford F-Series, Chevrolet CK trucks, and Dodge D-Series all came standard with these Spartan bench seats. Truck buyers loved the practicality of seating 3 people and the rugged simplicity that matched their work-focused vehicles. But this utilitarian design came with a hidden danger that became tragically apparent in rear-end collisions. Without headrests, passengers' heads would snap backward violently during impact, causing severe whiplash injuries that could result in permanent neck damage. The bench design also meant that passengers in the middle had no side support during crashes, and the lack of individual seatbelts, which came later, meant people could slide around dangerously during sudden stops or impacts. The flat, unsupported design provided no protection for the vulnerable neck area, and many truck drivers and passengers suffered serious injuries that could have been prevented with proper head and neck support. By the mid-1970s, federal safety regulations mandated headrests in all vehicles, finally providing the neck protection that pickup truck occupants desperately needed. Number 8. GM's side saddle fuel tanks. Perhaps no pickup truck feature was more controversial or dangerous than the side saddle fuel tanks that General Motors installed on their full-size trucks from 1973 to 1987. These tanks were mounted outside the frame rails, positioned between the cab and rear axle, where they were protected only by thin sheet metal. GM claimed this design provided better weight distribution and increased fuel capacity. But the reality was far more sinister. These tanks were positioned in the primary crush zone during side impact collisions. The danger became tragically apparent through numerous accidents, where side impacts caused these tanks to rupture and ignite, turning routine crashes into deadly fires. The tank's location made them vulnerable to puncture from relatively minor side impacts, and their position meant that any fuel spillage would flow directly toward the passenger compartment. Unlike properly protected fuel tanks mounted within the frame rails, these side saddle tanks had minimal protection from impact and were prone to rupturing even in moderate crashes. The controversy reached its peak in the 1990s when safety advocates and attorneys filed numerous lawsuits against GM, claiming the design was inherently dangerous. Eventually, GM was forced to offer free relocation of these tanks to safer positions, effectively admitting that their original design was fatally flawed. This scandal marked the end of side-mounted fuel tanks and led to stricter regulations requiring fuel tanks to be positioned in protected areas of the vehicle structure. Number 7. Non-collapsible steering columns. Before the late 1960s, pickup truck steering columns were built like medieval lances, solid, unyielding steel shafts that connected the steering wheel directly to the steering box with no give whatsoever. Ford F-Series, Chevrolet CK trucks, and Dodge D-Series all featured these rigid columns that were designed for durability, not safety. Truck owners appreciated the solid feel and direct connection to the road, never imagining that their steering wheel could become a deadly weapon. In frontal collisions, these non-collapsible columns became spears that could cause horrific chest and abdominal injuries. The solid steel construction meant that all the crash energy was transferred directly to the driver's body, with no mechanism to absorb or redirect the impact force. Unlike modern collapsible columns that crumple and fold during crashes, these early designs offered no protection whatsoever. The steering wheel itself, often made of hard plastic or metal, could cause severe facial injuries or crush the driver's chest. General Motors introduced the first collapsible steering column in 1967, followed by Ford and Chrysler, marking the end of an era when pickup truck steering wheels were essentially weapons waiting to strike. This single safety innovation probably saved more lives than any other pickup truck safety feature, transforming the steering wheel from a deadly projectile into a life-saving device. Number 6. Manual drum brakes. For decades, American pickup trucks relied on manual drum brakes that required the strength of a lumberjack and the timing of a race car driver to operate effectively. From the 1940s through the early 1970s, Ford F-Series, Chevrolet CK trucks, and Dodge D-Series all came standard with four-wheel drum brakes that had no power assistance whatsoever. Truck drivers developed leg muscles like tree trunks from the constant effort required to stop these heavy vehicles, especially when loaded with cargo or towing trailers. The dangers of this system became apparent in emergency situations where split-second stopping could mean the difference between life and death. Manual drum brakes required enormous pedal pressure to achieve maximum stopping power, and in panic situations, many drivers simply couldn't apply enough force to stop effectively. The drums were also prone to brake fade during extended use, such as descending mountain grades where the friction material would overheat and lose effectiveness. Wet conditions made the problem even worse, as water could get inside the drums and drastically reduce braking performance. The lack of power assistance meant that elderly drivers, smaller individuals, or anyone with physical limitations couldn't safely operate these trucks in emergency situations. As power brake boosters became standard equipment in the 1970s, followed by disc brakes and eventually anti-lock systems, the era of manual drum brakes finally ended, making pickup trucks safer and more accessible to a broader range of drivers. Number 5. Lap-only seat belts. When seat belts first appeared in pickup trucks during the late 1950s and early 1960s, they consisted of simple lap belts that stretched across the occupant's waist with no shoulder restraint whatsoever. Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge all offered these basic lap belts as optional equipment, and many truck buyers saw them as unnecessary additions to their rugged work vehicles. The belts were often uncomfortable, inconvenient, and many drivers simply ignored them altogether. The fundamental flaw in lap-only seat belts became tragically apparent in frontal collisions, where the belt would hold the lower body in place while allowing the upper body and head to slam forward into the dashboard, steering wheel, or windshield. This submarining effect could cause severe internal injuries as the belt cut into the abdomen, and the lack of upper body restraint meant that head and chest injuries were common even when the belt was properly worn. In rollover accidents, lap-only belts provided virtually no protection, allowing occupants to be thrown around the cab or even ejected from the vehicle. The psychological effect was equally damaging. Many people who were injured while wearing lap-only belts developed a distrust of seat belts in general, leading to lower usage rates. The introduction of three-point seat belts with shoulder harnesses in the late 1960s revolutionized pickup truck safety, providing proper upper body restraint and dramatically reducing injury rates in crashes. Number 4. Metal dashboards. The dashboard of early pickup trucks was essentially a sheet metal panel studded with hard, unforgiving gauges, switches, and knobs that could turn a minor accident into a major tragedy. From the 1940s through the mid-1960s, Ford F-Series, Chevrolet Advanced Design trucks, and Dodge job-rated pickups all featured dashboards made of painted steel with no padding or energy-absorbing materials whatsoever. These utilitarian designs matched the work-focused nature of pickup trucks, but they harbored a deadly secret. In frontal collisions, these metal dashboards became unforgiving surfaces capable of causing devastating head, face, and chest injuries to unrestrained occupants. The hard steel surface, combined with protruding knobs and switches, created multiple impact points that could cause serious injuries. Even minor accidents could result in significant harm as passengers' heads struck the unyielding metal surface. The lack of any energy-absorbing material meant that all the crash energy was transferred directly to the occupant's body, with no cushioning effect to reduce injury severity. As safety awareness grew in the 1960s, manufacturers began adding padded vinyl covers and eventually redesigned dashboards with energy-absorbing materials and recessed controls. The transformation from hard metal to soft padded surfaces represented one of the most significant safety improvements in pickup truck history, turning the dashboard from a hazard into a protective barrier. Number 3. Exposed spare tire carriers. Many classic pickup trucks featured spare tire carriers that mounted the spare tire underneath the bed or on the rear bumper, completely exposed to the elements and potential impact. These carriers, common on Ford F-Series, Chevrolet CK trucks, and Dodge D-Series from the 1960s through the 1980s, seemed like practical solutions for storing the spare tire without taking up valuable bed space. The exposed mounting systems were simple, accessible, and allowed for quick tire changes on the roadside. However, these exposed carriers created multiple safety hazards that became apparent over time. In rear-end collisions, the spare tire could become a projectile, breaking free from its mounting and potentially damaging the fuel tank, rear axle, or even flying into traffic. The carriers themselves, often made of heavy steel, could punch through the bed floor during severe impacts, creating additional hazards for cargo and passengers. The exposed location also made the spare tire vulnerable to theft, and the constant exposure to road salt, debris, and weather caused the mounting hardware to corrode and weaken over time. Perhaps most dangerously, the protruding carrier could snag on other vehicles during accidents, causing additional damage and potentially trapping occupants. Modern pickup trucks now store spare tires in protected locations with secure mounting systems, eliminating the risks associated with these exposed carriers that turned a simple spare tire into a potential hazard. Number 2. Vent windows, wing windows. Vent windows, also called wing windows, were small triangular windows found at the front corners of pickup truck doors from the 1930s through the 1980s. These windows could be tilted open to allow airflow into the cab before air conditioning became common in trucks. They were especially popular with truck drivers who spent long hours on the road and needed ventilation without the noise and buffeting of fully opened windows. While vent windows provided welcome relief from heat, they created several safety and security issues that eventually led to their demise. The small windows were notorious for leaking during rain, allowing water to drip directly onto drivers and passengers. More seriously, they became easy entry points for thieves who could quickly pop open the vent window and reach inside to unlock the door or steal items from the cab. The mechanical linkages that operated the vent windows were prone to failure, sometimes leaving the windows stuck open or closed. In accidents, the protruding vent window hardware could cause additional injuries, and the complex window mechanisms added weight and cost to the vehicle. As air conditioning became standard equipment in pickup trucks during the 1980s, and as security concerns grew, manufacturers phased out vent windows in favor of more streamlined designs that improved aerodynamics, reduced noise, and enhanced security. Number 1. Unprotected fuel tank placement. The most dangerous feature on many pickup trucks wasn't a single component. It was where manufacturers decided to place the fuel tank. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, various manufacturers experimented with fuel tank locations that prioritized convenience, capacity, and cost savings over occupant safety. The result was a collection of designs that turned pickup trucks into potential fire hazards, just waiting for the right accident to turn a survivable crash into a tragedy. Beyond GM's notorious side saddle tanks, other manufacturers made questionable fuel tank placement decisions. Some trucks had tanks mounted behind the cab with minimal protection from rear-end collisions. Others featured tanks that extended below the frame rails where they could be punctured by road debris or damaged in relatively minor accidents. Ford's 1980s F-Series trucks had fuel tanks positioned in areas vulnerable to side impacts, and many manufacturers used thin-walled tanks with inadequate shielding from crash forces. These unprotected tanks were susceptible to rupture in accidents that should have been survivable, and when they failed, fuel would spill into areas where it could ignite from hot exhaust components, electrical sparks, or friction. The lack of proper impact protection, rollover valves, and fire suppression systems meant that even moderate accidents could result in catastrophic fires. The widespread problems with fuel tank placement led to congressional hearings, massive recalls, and eventually federal regulations requiring fuel tanks to be mounted in protected locations within the vehicle structure. This issue probably did more to improve pickup truck safety than any other single factor, forcing manufacturers to prioritize occupant protection over cost considerations and proving that sometimes the most dangerous feature is the one you can't see. These 13 dangerous features remind us how far pickup truck safety has come, from exposed fuel tanks to steering wheels that offered zero protection. Today's trucks are engineering marvels compared to these rolling adventures our fathers and grandfathers drove with pride. If this trip down memory lane fired up your engine, hit that subscribe button and check out our next video on screen about the most dangerous muscle cars that Detroit ever unleashed on America's highways.